SCF, good morning. My name is Warren, and I'm going to be your service host today, and I just want to let you know that I am so excited. If you are here in the building or online, thank you so much for joining us here on this beautiful, rainy October morning. Now, if you are joining us on Facebook, go ahead and take a second and reach out to Jetta. She is our live feed host today. Good morning, Jetta. Thank you so much for doing that, and be sure to say hello to her. Our mission statement here at SCF is actually right over my shoulder here. It's connecting people to Jesus through intentional relationships with one another. And I want to give you a couple of ways here that you can intentionally do that and take that next step here this morning. So first is with children ages birth to 5th grade. We have a Wild Kingdom program just for them that meets in the morning, and we have a middle and high school youth group program that meets as well. If you need help finding that, just find somebody with a t-shirt that says here to help, and we'd be happy to go ahead and direct you towards that. Also, we have something called FX. That is the first Sunday of every month, so it's going to be in 2 weeks on November 7th. And that is a high-energy, amazing program for families so that they can go ahead and celebrate Jesus with their kids right next to their side. It's fantastic. Please check that out, November 7th in 2 weeks. Another way we can go ahead and prioritize relationships intentionally is through Meet Us. That is going to be today after service. It's actually today. And that is for people who are maybe new to SCF or haven't taken that next step of connection, or if you just want to kind of find out a little bit more about SCF, go ahead and join Meet Us. It's right after service. There's going to be food and childcare available. It's actually right down the hall over here in room 125. So we hope to see you there for that. And lastly, Trunk or Treat. Can you believe it's already time for Trunk or Treat? Goodness gracious. If you've been here for a while, you know all about Trunk or Treat. It is an amazing, amazing thing. We have 3 ways that you can serve. One is at Green Bray Elementary School, Another is at Alice Maxwell Elementary. And third is with your community group. We want to challenge you to go out into the neighborhood and do trunk or treat in the neighborhood with that. If you want more information on that, we have a quick video of Susie, actually, and her community group and how they celebrate trunk or treat. Enjoy.
My name is Susie, and I am going to tell you how I got involved in trunk or treat. First was when SCF was doing the trunk or treat here in the parking lot. I brought my kids when they were little, and we participated both as trick-or-treaters and as trunkers, and we had a great time with that. I like the fact that everybody can get together. I like seeing all the kids dressed up. I love seeing the people who do the trunks. I love the way they decorate their trunks. It's a lot of fun to see all the different things that people show up with. When SCF decided to expand the trunk or treat from just this parking lot out into the community, I was pretty excited about that because out in the North Valleys, we don't have a lot of outreach for our kids. I was a little bummed because my own neighborhood is total pitch black. At night, there's no lights. But then I thought, hey, I work at Alice Smith School. Let's see if we can do it at the school. So I asked my boss. He said yes. And from there, we got families, we got teachers, I got my community group involved. We ended up with about 13 or 14 cars decorated and quite a bit of candy to pass out. The kids went by several times, 3 or 4 times, because we didn't have a lot. But the second year that we did it, the word had spread, so it was able to build up. And so I'm looking forward to hoping to do it again this year. People come to candy. Like I said before, it's a pretty easy community outreach. If you live in a neighborhood where the kids trick or treat anyway, it's instead of being in your house, you're out in the front of your yard. But I think that most schools, if you're involved in your school as a parent involvement, you could probably ask them, and they might let you do it there too. If you're on the fence with trying to figure out how you can do community outreach, this is a pretty easy one to start with because lots of kids and lots of families are already involved in trick-or-treating, and this gives them a safe place to go. If you have a neighborhood where they trick-or-treat, it's nice to just be out in the front of your house instead of in your house and gather up your small group, maybe make it a little bit of a party that way. The trunks are always fun. It adds a lot of, it adds a lot of pizzazz when you can decorate your trunks and get dressed up yourself. And it's a pretty easy outreach to do as a beginning outreach.
All right, I love Susie sharing her story of how she got involved with Trunk or Treat. And so you just got to hear one story of how somebody was intentional this time of year to engage in the community. And we have a few ways this year that you can get engaged. One of those ways is by partnering with 2 elementary schools that have reached out and asked us if we would help with their Trunk or Treat this year. And so Anna, what is that going to look like for us?
It's so fun, and you won't want to miss it. Thursday at 1 o'clock, we'll be in our parking lot right here doing Trunk or Treat for Greenbrae. In increments, their classes will come out and trunk or treat through our cars. And then Thursday night, the same night, Thursday the 28th, then we'll be at Alice Maxwell at 5:30, and their kids will come out and trick or treat through the cars.
Very cool. So 2 different ways. There's going to be in the afternoon. That was this Thursday, October the 28th. We're going to be helping out at Greenbrae Elementary. And then that evening, we're going to be at Alice Maxwell Elementary. Now, Anna, do people have to do both of those, or can they sign up for one or the other?
You can sign up for one or the other, or both. If you want to do both, then more the merrier.
All right, so you can sign up for that afternoon. If you're free Thursday afternoon, you could sign up that evening. Or if Thursday is not going to work for you, we would also encourage you to take advantage of this time of year, take advantage of the opportunity to trunk or treat and engage in our community next Sunday. Next Sunday's Halloween. It's the 31st. And so maybe this Thursday for trunk or treat doesn't work for you, but you could do something a week from tonight. You could do something Halloween night. And so what we would encourage you to do for that is think through, what is a way that I could engage in my community next Sunday night? Now, there's not necessarily going to be a sanctioned SCF event. We're not going to be out in our parking lot, but we're going to encourage you as the church to be outside these walls and outside this parking lot. Maybe for you, that's going to look like getting your community group together. Maybe it's your serve team together. Maybe you have some friends or some neighbors or some extended members of your family that you can say, hey, let's get together. Let's make this a fun opportunity. Let's engage in our neighborhood. I love what Susie said about how when she very first started thinking about what she was going to do, the first trunk or treat that we moved it out of our parking lot, but she realized that she didn't have a neighborhood that did a lot of trick-or-treating. Maybe you're in one of those neighborhoods. I can't remember how she put it, that it was like a blacked out or lights out.
Blacked out neighborhood. But everybody knows somebody that lives in a neighborhood that has trunk or treaters.
That's right. So ask around. Hey, just start inviting yourself over to people's house. I do it all the time. Just, hey, you seem like you might be in a neighborhood with lots of kids. It seems like there's an elementary school nearby. Could I just come over? Could we set up shop? We know of some really creative things people have done to engage that night. Anna, does anything hit your mind of some things you've seen groups do to engage and make that night fun?
Sure. I've seen groups sit out in their driveway with their fire pit. I've seen groups roast some hot dogs and invite the kids to just have a hot dog while they're trick-or-treating. I've seen groups just have music and make it a party, and it's just fun. It's fun to sit out in your parking lot or your driveway and just engage with each other and the kids.
Yes. I know one group who went like way above and beyond and did a pizza party, like ordered a ton of pizza to pass out. I'm pretty sure that was a pretty popular spot in the neighborhood that week.
So do you know where that house is?
Actually, I think it's someone on stage. Sure, wasn't that you? Okay, I promise I'm not making that up. Someone did a pizza party. So I don't know where that house is, but I would also like to find it. So there's a lot of different ways that you could get engaged and that you could be involved and have fun in your neighborhood. Now, if that's you, you can get signed up. You can sign up your group. And if you sign up your group, if you do that today, sorry, when I say sign up today, I feel like I'm on an infomercial all of a sudden. Sign up today, and the truth is you'll get the same thing if you sign up tomorrow or any other time this week. But sign up today. Let us know where your group is going to be. Number one, we just kind of want to know where people are so that we can follow up and kind of see, hey, where were the different places that SCF people were engaging in their neighborhood this Halloween by trunk-or-treating? So let us know that, and then we will have a gift box for you in your group. One of the things that gift box will have is a yard sign that says Happy Trunk or Treating from Sparks Christian Fellowship. Anna, do you know some other things that'll be in that box?
It'll have some candy to get you started. It'll have some ideas and fun ways to engage your community and the kids.
Yeah, so we want to get you that box, but we need to know that you're doing it. I believe the distribution for that will be on Tuesday night. Tuesday night. So either today or tomorrow, if you've got a group of people that you're going to sign up, let us know that. You can let us know that, and actually you can let us know that you're signing up for Alice Maxwell and for Green Bray. You can do that using the SCF app. So if you pull up the SCF app, if you click the tab that says Start Here, and then you click on Trunk or Treating, the tab there, it's going to have an option to sign up for Green Bray on Thursday, to sign up for Alice Maxwell on Thursday, or to sign up your community group. If you sign up your community group, that lets us know to let you know that you can pick up your box to help get you started and to engage next Sunday evening.
That's right. Don't limit yourself. You can do all 3.
That's exactly right. Yeah, so go all 3. We'd love to see it. So guys, thank you so much for listening. Again, you can get signed up for any of those things using the app on your own, or today after service. We have some folks who showed up today just to help you with signups. They're going to be under that Next Step banner right there. Let them know you'd like to get signed up for Trunk or Treat, and they will help you do that. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we're looking forward to see your costumes and your fun ideas and what you come up with.
Well, good morning, church. We are so excited that you are here to join us, whether you're here in person or online. We are going to begin service by worshiping through songs, so we invite you to stand and join with us.
Bring all the walk out on me. I have no reason to doubt you. And who you've been, you'll always be. And though the future's still unfolding, with everything I've seen, how could I not believe? You are a promise keeper, your word will never fail. My heart can trust you, Jesus, I won't be overwhelmed. My eyes are gonna see miracles and victories. You are a promise keeper, your word will never fail. Stolen. There's nothing that you can't redeem. And though the story's still unfolding, with everything I've seen, how could I not believe? You are a promise keeper, your word will never fail. My heart can trust you, be overwhelmed. My eyes are gonna see miracles and victories. You are the promise keeper, your word will never fail. Your word will never fail. And I'll see your goodness in the land of the living, and I'll see your goodness right here, right now. And you know the ending before the beginning, and I know that you have worked all things out. And I'll see your goodness in the land of the living, and I'll see your goodness right here, right now. You know the ending for the beginning, and I know that you have worked all things out. I know, I know, I know. You are a promise keeper, your word will never fail. My heart can trust you, Jesus, I won't be overwhelmed. My eyes are gonna see miracles and victories. You are the promise keeper, your word will never fail. I'll see your goodness in the land of the living. I'll see your goodness right here, right now. You know the ending for the beginning. I know that you have worked all things out. I know I'll see your goodness in the land of the living, and I'll see your goodness right here, right now. And you know the ending before the beginning, and I know that you have worked all things out. All these pieces broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole, empty-handed but not forsaken. I've been set free, I've been set free. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life.
He takes our failure.
You take our failure, you take our weakness, you set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Ooh, oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Ooh, oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Amazing grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down,
so much for worshiping with us. Before you're seated, why don't you turn to somebody around you, wish them a good morning, say hello, and then you can take your seats.
Jesus of Nazareth was a master teacher, and some of his most well-known teachings are told in short stories called parables.
Yeah, like the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant who was looking for pearls. And when he found the ultimate pearl, he sold everything so that he could buy it.
Must have been some pretty amazing pearl.
Or the kingdom of God is like a tiny mustard seed that a farmer planted in his garden. It grew and became a huge tree, and birds came to perch in its branches.
And that's a beautiful image, but what does it mean?
Exactly. Jesus didn't tell parables to make everything clear. Rather, he wanted to provoke the imagination and invite people to see what God is doing in the world from a new perspective.
So let's talk about how to read the parables of Jesus. Now, there's many great teachers that throughout history have used stories to teach students about morality, religion, philosophy.
But Jesus didn't use his parables to teach abstract religious or moral ideals. He said that his parables were about himself and his mission.
His mission, which was to announce that the kingdom of God was arriving on earth as it is in heaven.
Right. So in Jesus' day, the Israelites were ruled by the Roman Empire. But their scriptures promised that one day their God would come to rule his people as king. And so many Israelites wanted to revolt against Rome and fight for their freedom.
And this is what some people thought of as the kingdom of God.
Exactly. But Jesus was a poor, traveling prophet, healing the sick, inviting people to follow him. And he said that this was the arrival of God's kingdom.
And that didn't fit people's expectations.
Right. And so Jesus used some parables to help people imagine that his small movement was the arrival of God's kingdom.
Oh yeah, like the parable that the kingdom of God is yeast hidden in a lump of dough. And you might not see its influence, but it's gonna change everything.
Jesus also told parables about the upside-down values of God's kingdom, about how the least important people in the world are actually the most important people to God, especially those who are poor and of low status.
Yeah, like the parable about the business owner who hired workers throughout the day, in the morning, later in the day, and even towards the end of the day. And when it was time to pay everyone, he paid them all the same wage.
Right, Jesus is showing how money and status are irrelevant to God, who offers his generous mercy to everybody.
Now, not all of the parables have happy endings. Some are really intense.
Yes, Jesus stood in the tradition of Israel's prophets, who also told parables to criticize Israel's leaders because they mistook their kingdom for God's. So Jesus warned the leaders of his day. If they don't accept his offer of God's kingdom, they're headed for destruction.
Yeah, like the parable of the landowner who built a wonderful vineyard, and he expects it to produce fruit.
Yes, Jesus gets this parable from the prophet Isaiah, but then he adapts it.
Right, and so the landowner appoints managers to take care of this vineyard. And at harvest, he sends servants to collect the fruit. But those managers kill the servants.
And so the landowner sends his own son to confront the managers, and they kill him too. And so Jesus asked the people around him, what do you all think this landowner should do?
Oh, he's gonna punish those managers and hire new ones.
Jesus knew that if Israel kept on their current path, they would be destroyed by Rome. And so in parables like this, he's forcing people to make a decision about his offer of God's kingdom. Are people going to reject him, ignore him, or trust and follow him?
Now, if this message of God's kingdom is so important, why cloak it in parables? Why not be more clear?
Well, through riddles and parables, Jesus could make really bold claims that revealed truth to people who were open-minded.
For those who have ears to hear, they could ponder it and go deeper.
But the parables would also conceal his message from those who were against him, so that he could buy more time.
Buy time for what?
Well, Jesus was preparing his closest followers for the greatest surprise yet. Jesus claimed that Israel's God was coming to rule over his people not through coercion or violent force, but through self-giving love as he was going to die for their sins.
But his death wasn't the end.
Right. He said that his death would be like a tiny seed buried in the ground, but then it would grow and produce a crop with many seeds.
So these parables, they explain who Jesus was and what he was up to.
And the gospel authors have preserved these parables so that now every generation of Jesus' followers can read and ponder them.
And imagine how God's kingdom is still at work even today.
Right. These ancient parables are still full of new surprises and challenges. They're like a storehouse packed with treasures, some that are new, some that are old, and it's all just waiting to be discovered.
Good morning, everybody. Hey, I'm excited to be here and to jump into the teaching today, but there's a few things that I've got to kind of get out of the way first. And we're going to kind of go in order with those. The first thing, if you are the owner of a gray Toyota Corolla, your lights are on, and I don't think this is the day you want to be stuck in the parking lot with your dead battery. So I've been asked to pass that along. If that's you, make sure you run out there and turn those lights off. Second thing, I'm going to address the obvious thing this morning, and that would be the football fans out there, because I'm not a football guy. Never have been, never understood you. As someone who's worked for churches, I've always fought of like, come on, show up on a Sunday. I know it's a game day, but just, it's not a big deal. You'll watch it later. You'll catch up on the score later. And then this morning hit. And as a Sharks fan, as a hockey fan, it is very rare to have a game not at night. It's even more rare to have it be a Sunday morning. It's even more rare to have it be the Sharks are undefeated in this opening week, and they're playing right now. And I feel your pain, football players. I get it now, okay? I understand. And I didn't have the restraint to not check the score before I got out here, and we're already down 2-0. So, thank you, football fans, for coming and being here on Sunday mornings. I get it now, okay? Next thing I've got to address on that vein is my mom, Dwayne Yancey, Wallace, Warren, our service host, any other Dodgers fan out there. I'm going to say this, I have no sympathy for you, right? Like, come on. At least you didn't go out with a really questionable call. Like, I don't know, as Giants fans, we're still a little bitter, but, you know, it's done. It's even. The world is right again. We're good to move forward. So, yeah, with all that kind of stuff in aside, I'm excited to jump in. Yeah, why Dodgers fans sitting next to each other? You're weird. It's all right. There's so few of them. They need the support. No. Yeah, I kind of want to jump right in this morning and kind of go back to that video we just watched. I don't know about you guys. I love those Bible Project videos. When I was here as the youth pastor, I would always say to my students, when you're going to read Scripture, watch the video before you read. Watch the video after you finish the book that you're reading. It helps kind of put the big picture back together. And a lot of us have seen, as we've used them often this year, there's the videos that go through, here is the book of whatever book you're reading. But if you don't know this, there's also videos like the one we just watched that break down themes. Like, hey, let's look at what all the parables are. Or maybe there's videos that are in there that are like biblical terms, right? So what does the Bible mean when it says grace? You can go and see an overview of that one word. Bible Project is awesome. I love those videos. And that one in particular, I really liked how it points out when we look at the parables that we have this idea that the parables are bold statements. They're kind of shocking. There are these claims that say, for those who have ears to hear, Jesus is making a statement to say, I am the Messiah that was coming. The Messiah is here, and let's move forward. And he really pushes at this. I love the idea in these videos that we talk about this idea that the parables provoke your imagination. That yeah, there's concepts we can get sometimes when someone teaches it to us, when it's a pretty black and white, in-your-face thing, but then we walk away and we don't really engage with it. But the parables provoke your imagination, draw you into, well, what's really going on here? Why does this make sense or not make sense? And it draws us to engage with the story. Another thing I really liked in this, I want to kind of point out, is the questions that it asked. That these parables draw us to ask the question of, who is Jesus in this story and what is he up to? Where's God and what is he doing? We've got to ask those questions. And here's the thing, when you guys, if you have been doing the reading plan with us, we're jumping into a week of almost all parable readings. You're going to see a ton of parables this next week. And I'm not going to give you any answers on that this morning. Because here's the thing. So often we come on a Sunday morning and we say, this is my engagement with faith. This 1 hour on a Sunday morning, give me the answers, let me know what's going on, and we move on. And that's a starting point. But as we've been talking about this whole year, as we've been going through the reading the scriptures chronologically, by the way, if you haven't had a chance to do that or jump on board with us, jump in this week. We would love to have you read along with us and be a part of this. But as we've been going through this whole series, we've been talking about how important it is to engage with each other as we discuss these scriptures. That this morning and every Sunday morning should just be setting the stage for the actual conversation, for the actual act of church happening. I know Jason said this before. I know I agreed with him 100% that Sunday mornings for me, that's not necessarily, I mean, it's church, but it's not the church in action the way I really need it. But when I sit with my group on Monday nights and I'm with those men, they will challenge me. What did you see in that? Where were you reading this? And what was the thing that was uncomfortable for you? What's God doing? Beyond that, they can take it to a point of saying, how can I pray for you this week? How can I take care of your needs? And we get to work together to be the church with our small group. It's so important that you get this morning, that as we dive into more and more of this reading plan, almost a full year in already, we've got to engage with each other. We've got to take it beyond this moment on a Sunday morning. So when it comes to the parables, I'm asking you to do that very thing. Go discuss it there. We're not even going to touch the parables this morning in the reading plan. That's going to be your homework assignment with your small group. With maybe if you don't have a small group yet, stop by the next steps area and say, hey, I want to get involved. I want to get plugged into a small group. They will help you find one. If that's not it this morning, maybe it's as simple as starting the conversation in the car ride home or wherever you're eating lunch. Take what we're discussing here, take it further. The reality is my teaching this morning probably is going to leave you with some questions, I hope, is going to leave you with a feeling of unresolved conversation. That's on purpose, because you need to go and have that conversation. You need to be the church and dive into this together. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the other thing this morning is a lot of you might be the type of person who likes the fill in the blanks and the notes pages that you get in the SCF app. And great, that's awesome. It's a great way to kind of follow along with the teaching. This morning, there's not going to be any fill in the blanks because I'm not giving you the answers, like I said. But there are some guiding questions to think about as we go through this teaching. So if you don't have the app and you would like to kind of have a reminder of these guiding questions, go ahead and bring them up download the app and bring them up on the teaching notes to follow along today. But here are the guiding questions. 2 are going to be for while we talk today. One's going to be a follow-up discussion afterwards. The first 2 for during the conversation is simply this. What did you learn about who Jesus is? When we read scripture this morning, what are you learning about who Jesus is in this moment? The second one is, what is Jesus up to in this moment in history? So I can learn about who he is, but what is he actively doing in history? And then the one to follow up is, you're going to see that this is a story about a transformed life. And the question we've got to ask ourselves is, has my life been transformed by Jesus? And here's what's interesting. You're going to circle back around over and over again on that. Because as you see your life has been transformed, you're going to learn about who Jesus is, and others are going to see that as well. And we got to figure out what is Jesus up to in our lives as well. So these are the questions we're going to kind of surround ourselves in this morning. But before I jump into our passage, I would like to pray. If you would join me, that would be awesome. God, I thank you for having a church that has challenged me over the last 10 years to take things further, to get into a community that will challenge me, that will make me uncomfortable, that will not let me just let a Sunday be good enough, but to challenge me and question me on, is my faith actually something I live by? Does it impact my life day in and day out? God, I pray that each of us will be, our imaginations will be provoked this morning by your word that will drive us to ask you the questions of where you are and what you're doing in our lives. And God, I just pray that we can do that as we go forward. And pray this in your name. Amen. Hey, I don't know if I said this. My brain's a little fuzzy right now. I just want to clarify. The parable reading, here's my specific ask of you. When you're reading that and you go into your small group, pick one of those parables that stood out to you. Pick one and say, this was interesting, and dive into it in that conversation with each other. That's where you're going to see a lot of growth. So that's my ask, is pick one parable that stood out to you and discuss it with somebody this week. Well, we're going to start in John chapter 9. That's the first chapter in the reading plan this week, and we're going to read through this chapter, and we're going to dive in and look at this character, this person who Jesus changes his life, a transformed life, and we're going to look at this conversation as we go. So John chapter 9 starts like this. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been born blind from birth. Rabbi, his disciples asked him, why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? It was not because of his sins or his parents' sins, Jesus answered. This happened so the power of God could be seen in him. We must quickly carry out the tasks assigned us by the one who sent us. The night is coming, and then no one can work. But while I am here in the world, I am the light of the world. Then he spit on the ground and made mud with the saliva and spread it over the blind man's eyes. He told him, go wash yourself in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So the man went and washed and came back seeing. We're going to pause here for a second. It's weird, right? Some of you have heard this story before. Some of you, maybe this is the first time you've read this in Scripture. I want to encourage you guys and remind you what Jason has been saying through the New Testament part of this reading plan especially, but all of it. We've been encouraging you to read the Scriptures as if you've never heard them before. So look at it with fresh eyes. I think in this story in particular, this is really important because often I've heard it taught on with one or two themes of this is what this story is about, and we move on. And here's the thing, that's one way to look at it. And when I hear that over and over again, and I go to read this passage, as soon as I get into it, I'm already clicked into that teaching that I heard before. And that one interpretation of this teaching that I've heard before. It's really important that we look at these with fresh eyes and say, God, what are you trying to say to me today? Because this isn't just a story. This is a moment in history. This is a moment in history with real people, with real issues. And when we look at this, we can see that, okay, there's a perspective that we're given, but what would that character's perspective be? What would that individual's perspective be rather than a character in a story? It's a real person with real emotions and real things. Beyond that, it's a moment in history and in time where there's context because of their cultural and religious place and time, that some of it we're going to understand and some of it we will never understand. And we have to do the best we can to put ourselves in that time frame to understand what's going on, rather than just thinking about it from our context here and now. And so with that in mind, let's kind of start to break down this passage and look at what's going on. So you have this moment where this guy is born blind. In a little bit, we'll find out that he's a beggar. He sits outside the city walls and he begs for money as people go by, and he was born blind. And the disciples of some rabbi are walking by him. And he overhears them probably having this conversation where they say, Rabbi, is this man's blindness due to his sin or his parents' sin? It might be a weird question to ask, but in their time frame, in the teachings at the time, that's a pretty normal question to ask. It was assumed that being born blind was a result of sin. And Jesus answers them pretty bluntly. It wasn't his sin or his parents' sin. And let me be very clear on this before we go much further. I am not saying that blindness from birth is something that for all blindness from birth is to do what Jesus said, that his blindness is there because the power of God will be seen through him. He's not making a blanket statement for all people born blind at this moment. Nor am I saying that blindness or any other disability is caused by sin. I'm not going the full opposite end of this either. I would say that sometimes there are disabilities that are caused by the result of poor choices of ours or others. I would say that there's a lot of disabilities out there that have nothing to do with that whatsoever. But I do know I don't have the ability or the wisdom or God's ability to know which is which. I don't. None of us do. But what I am saying is Jesus, when he's talking about this man in this point of history and time, he's saying his blindness was so that the power of God could be seen through him. This is an individual in history. And that is interesting. Because you have this story and you have this blind man who has this question said about him as people are walking by, and he's probably sitting there going, yeah, I'm right here and you're talking about me. And then all of a sudden he hears this guy go from, yeah, the power of God's going to be seen in him, and you're going like, really? Because I've just been sitting here begging for money and scraping by it because of our society. I'm not able to do anything else. What power of God is going to be seen through me? And then he says a phrase of, I'm the light of the world, and you're kind of sitting there going, I've heard that phrase in prophecies before. I've heard that. Maybe he's referring to the Messiah, but that doesn't make any sense either, because when's that guy coming, and what's that going to look like? And all of a sudden he hears him spit on the ground. And we might look at this story and say this is weird and maybe gross and a little bit weird. In their culture and their context, this is way more than just a little bit weird. This is deeply insulting to spit and have bodily fluids being shared in this moment. So he hears this rabbi spit in the ground and make some mud, and all of a sudden he rubs it on your eyes like, okay, that's disgusting. And he says, get up and go to this pool, the pool that is named after this concept and this idea of being sent. And he says, go wash your eyes. Now here's the craziest thing in this to me. I'd be jumping up immediately to go wash my eyes too. Has nothing to do with the fact that I'm going to trust that he's going to make me see. In fact, Jesus doesn't even mention that that's the point of this right now. He just wipes some mud in your eyes and says, go wash your eyes. That's ridiculous to me. I would be jumping and going to get this spit mud off my face too, but when he does, he goes and he washes his eyes and he's able to see. We continue on in verse 8. His neighbors and others who knew him as a blind beggar asked each other, isn't this the man who used to sit and beg? Some said he was, and others said, no, he just looks like him. But the beggar kept saying, yes, I am the same one. We're going to pause right here. He goes, he washes his eyes, he can see, he comes back, and people that knew him, that saw him daily as this beggar go, I don't even know if this is the same guy. Maybe that's possibly because he's changed so much that his attitude and his just countenance in general just looks so different because of the miracle. Is that a possibility? Sure. Or maybe it's because they didn't actually ever give him the time of day. They assumed that he had this blindness because of sin. He was a beggar, and yeah, they knew they could walk right by him and maybe throw him a little money, maybe say hi, but they didn't have to actually engage with this man. They didn't actually have to look at him because he knew where he would be. And now that all of a sudden he's looking them back in the eyes, they're like, I don't know, is this the same guy? I'm not even sure. It makes me wonder a little bit about myself and how I would have interacted in this. How I do interact when every day I get on the freeway at Vista or I get on the freeway at Pyramid. How often do I actually look at the people that are there? Would I recognize them if their situation changed? I don't know. Verse 10, they asked, who healed you? What happened? He told them, the man they called Jesus made mud and spread it over my eyes and told me, go to the pool of Siloam and wash yourself. So I went and washed, and now I can see. Where is he now? They asked. I don't know, he replied. Then they took the man who had been blind to the Pharisees, because it was on the Sabbath that Jesus had made the mud and healed him. The Pharisees asked the man all about it. So he told them, he put mud over my eyes, and when I washed it away, I could see. Some of the Pharisees said, this man, Jesus, is not from God, for he is working on the Sabbath. And others said, but how could an ordinary sinner do such miraculous signs? And there was deep division among them. Okay, so we're going to pause here again. Think about this for a second as actual time and place in history. Not in what you hear and what you've been taught about Pharisees in the church before. Put that aside. These are religious leaders. Someone's brought to them that there's been a miracle that happened on the Sabbath, which shouldn't have happened. It was a day of rest. And all of a sudden, they're tasked with, is this true? Is this real? And there's a division and a fight because could he be from God if he healed on the Sabbath? That would make him a sinner just like the rest of us. And so they start to have a debate and argue over this. I would love to say that I would immediately believe that this was from God. I don't think I would. I think the Pharisees here do a decent job in a lot of this. Yet they are a little bit biased, and we're going to see that. In verse 17, we read this. Then the Pharisees again questioned the man who had been blind and demanded, what is your opinion about this man who healed you? The man replied, I think he must be a prophet. The Jewish leaders refused to believe the man who had been blind and could now see. So they called in his parents. They asked them, is this your son? Was he born blind? And if so, how can he see? His parents replied, we know this is our son, and that he was born blind, but we do not know how he can see or healed him. Ask him. He is old enough to speak for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders who had announced that anyone saying Jesus was the Messiah would be expelled from the synagogue. They're a little bit biased already, right? They've already made up their mind that he's not the Messiah, and if you say that, you're going to lose your community. So again, here's what happens. Okay, now I lost my place. Hold on. That's why they said, his parents, he is old enough, ask him. So for the second time, they called in the man who had been born blind and told him, God should get the glory for this, because we know this man Jesus is a sinner. I don't know whether he is a sinner, the man replied. But I know this. I was born blind, and now I can see. But what did he do? They asked. How did he heal you? Look, the man exclaimed. I told you once, didn't you listen? Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too? It's an interesting thing. Here's what the religious leaders reply with. Then they cursed him and said, you are his disciple, but we are the disciple of Moses. We know God spoke to Moses, but we don't even know where this man came from. Why, that is very strange, the man replied. He has healed my eyes, and yet you do not know where he comes from? We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but he is ready to hear those who worship him and do his will. Ever since the world began, no one has been able to open the eyes of someone born blind. If this man were not from God, he could not have done it. You were born a total sinner, they answered. Are you trying to teach us? And they threw him out of the synagogue. Let's break this down and talk about this, because there's a lot in here. You've got these religious leaders that I really do believe they're doing the best they can. Yes, they already had a predisposed opinion of who Jesus was. And they knew that there was consequences if they said, this man is the Messiah. One, you're going to get kicked out of the synagogue. You're going to lose your community. You're going to lose a lot of what you have in your life. And I think just as much as the parents are afraid to say this, I think they're afraid to say this. And so they're investigating this man, and everything seems to be coming back in the same logic that no, someone who sins would not be from God. And someone who is from God would be able to do this, and only someone from God would be able to heal this man. And their logic is pretty sound, but they're coming to a wall, and they keep coming to a wall. So they keep asking the same question. And he's saying, look, do you get it? This is the one we've been waiting for. This is the Messiah. Do you want to be his disciple too? I don't think that they're in a wrong place of investigating truth to see if this is God. But their response started to change because of their heart condition. Now let's pause and look at a different set of characters in this historical moment, his parents. Think about this for a second. In that time frame, in that culture, it is assumed that either you or your child sinned so much by birth that he was born blind. And as a parent, maybe you're sitting there thinking, well, if he was born blind, then the blame's on me. And their whole life, they've carried this guilt and this shame of what did I do so bad in my life that my kid is blind? To the point in our culture, he can't even get a job and he has to sit and beg, and that's because of my actions. And when they're interviewed, they say, look, that's my kid. Yeah, he was born blind. I don't know who healed him or what happened. But I know this has to be of God. And yet they're so afraid to even say the words out loud that I'm going to lose everything if I say I think this man, whoever it was, is the Messiah. Yet their son has a different response. When he's questioned, he keeps saying, why don't you get this? Why don't you see that it's God? It has to be him. He's the one who was sent. He's the one who is the Messiah. He's the only one who could have healed me. And by your own logic, you should see that this is got to be him. And he says, why do you keep asking, do you want to be his disciple too? He holds firm to what his belief is in this. Here's my thoughts personally. I've got to give credit to religious leaders for investigating to see what is happening here. When they see that he was changed, though, those leaders couldn't see anything but a sinner still. You're still just a total sinner. How could you think to teach us? We know what your life has been like. We know the punishment that you got for whatever that sin might have been. Why would we listen to you? And it makes me wonder some really painful questions. I wonder how many of us are still seen as total sinners because of what our life was prior to knowing Jesus. I wonder how many of us try to make an argument for following Christ, but all we are coming against is, why would we listen to you? We know you're a sinner. Think about this. The very thing that defined this man as a sinner, his blindness from birth, is the very thing that Jesus took away. And yet they still saw him as a sinner. I wonder how many of us, how much of God's power displayed through our life is missed simply because of other people's disbelief that we could have a changed life. But this man stayed strong in what he knew to be true. Then he let God's power speak for itself and said, I don't get it, I don't understand it, but I'm changed. I was blind and I can see, and that's enough for me to follow him. And do you want to be his disciple too? Maybe, just maybe, God's power in changed lives goes a lot further than our logical, rational arguments for why someone should go and follow Jesus. Your changed life goes so much further in convincing somebody of the truth than a logical, rational argument. Yet, I think we tend to stick in the arguments like these Pharisees do. The cool thing is here that the story doesn't end in this moment. It goes a little bit further. Jesus didn't just heal him and walk away. He did. But then we see Jesus heard what was going on. In verse 35, we read this. When Jesus heard about what had happened, he found the man and asked, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" The man answered, "Who is he, sir? I want to believe in him." "You have seen him," Jesus said, "and he is speaking to you." "Yes, Lord, I believe," the man said, and he worshiped Jesus. Then Jesus told him, "I have entered the world to render judgment, to give sight to the blind, and show those who think they see that they are blind." Some Pharisees who were standing nearby heard him and asked, "Are you saying that we're blind?" Get this, I love this response. If you were blind, you wouldn't be guilty. But you remain guilty because you claim to see, you can see. Even in this moment here, there's a warning that I want to give you in your heart. What happened with these Pharisees? They had an expectation of who the Messiah would be, and the fact that he's healing someone that was thought to be a sinner by taking his blindness away and doing it on the Sabbath when they didn't understand that to be right. And there's these questions. They put the Messiah in a box and said it can only be this way. And they missed it because they were so focused on themselves and what they thought the answers would be. And I want to share with you a verse in here again that I think we, as the church in America, often miss because we want Jesus to be a warm, fuzzy feeling that everybody can be welcomed in by. And he is in so many ways. But we can get caught up in so much of who we think Jesus is supposed to be that we miss what he said himself why he came. "I entered this world to render judgment, to give sight to the blind, and to show those who think they see they are blind." And often we say, yeah, for those Pharisees, good, render judgment on them, but not for me. Like I said, I think when I read this, I definitely put myself in the place of those religious leaders trying to verify what God is doing. I got to be real careful. Am I going to trust him that he's rendering judgment for me and how I act and how I treat others? But you see, Jesus is talking to them and he says, look, you thought his blindness was the proof of his sin, but you're the blind one. You believe he was guilty of sin because of his blindness, yet you are guilty for ignoring your own sin and claiming to be innocent. You're in the same boat here. We all are. We've got to figure this out. And Jesus takes this moment of history, a physical healing and point in time, and all of a sudden, he turns it into a parable. He takes this moment of fact and figure and he says, let's provoke your imagination and let's make sure you get it. Do you have ears to hear this morning? You're the blind one. You claim that your life is right and in good place, yet you're treating others as if they're the sinners, ignoring your own downfalls and faults and not relying on God yourself. And when he turns this into a parable and he provokes the imagination, questions have to be asked. Who's God in this moment? What is he doing? And that's where I'm going to leave you this morning. When you look at your life, and you've got to ask the next step, right? We've been talking about this for quite a while here at SCF. What are our next steps every Sunday? The next step for you is got to ask the question, has Jesus entered my life to the point where my life has been transformed? Did I have a change in my life, yes or no? And that's a starting point to wrestle through. Then you have to follow up with that. If my life has been changed, how does that show who Jesus is and what he is up to today? You've got to engage with this life. You've got to engage with what God is doing. And you've got to ask the question. And like I said this morning, I'm not waiting for answers. I'm not giving answers. I'm going to ask you, please have this conversation today in the car ride home with whoever you came with. Please have this conversation this week in your small groups. Find that community where you can take a Sunday morning further. And that's where you're going to answer these questions. Thank you for being here this morning. Warren's going to come back up and close us out, I think. I don't know where he's at this morning. There he is. Another Dodgers fan. I'm sorry, but thank you for being here anyway.
Awesome job. So it stopped raining outside in Arizona. So enjoy that rain as you leave. Hey, real quickly, one of our main points here is choosing community. Right underneath here is our next steps area. We have some folks that would love to talk to you about getting hooked up with a small group or a serve team or trunk or treat or the meet us right after in room 125, any of those. So please go ahead and check that out. Also, we have a great dedicated group of folks that we call our prayer team. They're right over there because we believe in the power of prayer here at SCF. So if you need prayer, if you are interested in that, they're going to be right over there. And if you have any questions, go ahead and jump on our app, and that'll hopefully give you the answers. Thanks so much for coming. Enjoy the rain. Enjoy the fall. I'm going to make cookies right after this with my daughter, so it's going to be good. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you.